welcome to another MMA Heat podcast. I'm Karyn Bryant.
What's up, guys? Alan Joban with you as well.
So yeah, we will talk about the fights that went down in Vegas, where Glover Teixeira beat Thiago Santos, which was kind of crazy. That was kind of a roller coaster of a fight. But Alan, we're a week and a half away from your fight. I love being able to say that. UFC 255 going down on the 21st. So how you feeling about being this close to a fight again?
I'm ready. I've been saying it over and over on our show. It was just kind of like waiting for the time to pass, continuing to do it. You know, when you're in camp for so long, like I've been this camp, you kind of just don't want to get burnt out, and you're like, all right, I'm ready for it to happen. But you're still able to make small improvements, and I've seen it. Although I wish I could have fought a month ago, in these last 4 weeks, there's been these subtle improvements that I've been able to make in sparring, and then my coach will say, look, this is something we didn't do. We didn't get head control. We didn't turn off the ropes. We didn't do this. And then I make adjustments and improve upon it on the next one. So I've definitely gotten better in this time, and it's allowed me to really just engulf my entire game from every aspect, not just sharpen the striking, but from every area of it. So I'm ready. You know, this week is finally starting to taper down into training. Next week is fight week, and then we rock and roll.
Cool. But I'm excited. If anybody sees, there's one of my, we have Harmony behind me trying to crawl up and around.
Oh, she's up there?
Yeah, she's back here. If you see anything going on, that's the puppy dog back there. Hiya, Harmony. Yeah, you're okay. Well, yeah, I'm excited for that. And I will be working the Facebook quick hits for that for UFC 255, which would be nice. I don't know if I'm going to have as much leeway backstage and everything. Like in Fight Island, we were able to move around a little bit more, I think, with the COVID rules. I don't know, but hopefully I'll be there and be able to watch you, walking out and all that. But yeah, and I believe now I sent you an updated, I believe you're the fourth fight. Shnikes. Oh. Okay, yeah, like we said, we have the dog here spilling stuff. It's all good. But yeah, so they've added fights. That's a big fight card. And so I believe now, yeah, you're the fourth fight. I think that one will be on Fight Pass and then also simulcast on ESPN Plus, if I'm not mistaken. So, but people, as it gets a little bit closer to your fight, people have to pay closer attention to where they can find you. But yeah, I'll be working on Facebook that night. So it'll be fun.
Yeah, from what you sent me, it looks like they're doing the whole early prelims and then normal prelims, and it looks like you said, I'm kind of one of the first fights on the regular prelims.
I think so, yeah. So as it gets closer, though, and like we always say, like, you never know what's going to happen because some things get shifted around because of COVID and that kind of thing. So, which is unfortunate. Actually, this past weekend, I was really looking forward to seeing Ian Heinisch fight, but he wasn't able to against Brendan Allen because of COVID there. So, I hope everything's okay. Brendan Allen, they actually rebooked against Sean Strickland, your former training partner there. So that will actually be happening. But yeah, so looking forward to your fight. But Alan, I'm curious what your take was on the main event this past weekend. A lot of us going into this fight thought that Thiago Santos would come in victorious, even though he's been off for over a year, 15 months really, with knee injuries that he got in the John Jones fight. But since that was such a good fight, I think a lot of people thought he was going to be able to come back and kind of fit right in there. He was number one ranked. Glover Teixeira was ranked number 3 coming into this. So, and at 41 years old, no, Glover is that guy that you're like, just when you thought he couldn't last anymore, he can. And Glover's the kind of guy that in the fight, you see him kind of getting damaged, and it's almost like that's when he wakes up and pulled off the submission. So congrats to Glover.
Congrats to him. I mean, he looked phenomenal when he was hurt, like you said, to be able to transition and get those tough takedowns. Not only get the takedowns, but Glover has kind of emerged in this division. And throughout his career, he's always had great grappling. But he was also very well known as a guy with very good boxing and good power. Mm-hmm. And so people in preparation for Glover would prepare heavily for his boxing and his power, and then don't let him get on top of you on the ground, because that's also very strong position. Yeah. He's starting to emerge now as a Khabib type guy that you have to go very heavily in the grappling defense and escape guard, because he will get on top of you. He will take you down. He's relentless with the takedown. He will find a way to transition and chain wrestle, get on top of you. But he's so good on top. He holds position. He throws punch after punch after punch. You saw it in the Anthony Smith fight. You saw it in this fight. He will keep you down for a lot of times in MMA. We see a takedown, and then we will see maybe a get up within a minute or two. But Glover will hold you down for 4.5 minutes if he gets you down in the first 30 seconds. And he will do damage the entire time. And then he will still chase that late submission, which he was able to get. And he's been so impressive. And I got to say, Thiago Santos, he looked phenomenal on the feet. He did not look so phenomenal on the ground. And you could hear during the show, the commentators kind of alluding to maybe he did not get the work in, maybe not. We're not sure. They said he is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Yes, his hips didn't look that great. He wasn't really shifting his weight back and forth or trying to butterfly or sweep or try to stand up. It was a little bit upper body like Dominic Cruz was kind of alluding to. But it's him getting back into things for the first fight, and somebody that's supremely dominant like Glover on top of you that's not allowing you to do very much. So I would attribute it more to Glover's dominance, less to Santos's lack of guard work from the bottom. But he looks phenomenal. And again, he's gotten older with age, and maybe his chin isn't as good as it used to be, but he's not going out. He gets stunned, and then he goes straight into transitional wrestling. And it's not desperate wrestling, if you will. You know what I mean? Right. Diving for a takedown because you're hurt. It's like, I'm hurt. Let me go to plan B where I'm much more dominant, and he stays consistent in pressure and damage on top. And he looked phenomenal from there. He looked phenomenal on the ground. Yeah,
to your point there, Thiago was kind of flat-footed on the bottom. Wasn't really, doing a lot to kind of escape some of these positions. But then at some of the times, even though Glover was dropping a lot of power, sometimes you think, okay, maybe he's just regrouping here and kind of, that sometimes you kind of look for your rest moments. But then it was too much of, I don't think Thiago's resting now. I think he's not getting up right now, and I think Glover is definitely putting it on him. And I know what you're saying, like, that's where we know Glover's great. I mean, wasn't he first even brought in to kind of wrestle for Chuck Liddell, with their coach John, and so Glover was kind of around before he was even in the UFC. We all know the story how he kind of got in here late. And he was somebody that they were arguing to try to get into the UFC for so long. But really, he's a tremendous wrestler, and we all knew that. But it is sort of funny to me that with Glover, just like you said, now he can get wobbled a little bit. Now he can get rocked a little bit. That's almost when, he wakes up now. It's like, oh, you tagged him a couple times. Now is when you need to look out. And I always joke about it. It's not funny. I'm sure Ryan Bader didn't think it was funny, but Ryan was almost winning that fight, had Glover up against, and then Glover counters him, right? So it's like, you should almost get more nervous when you've almost got Glover finished. You know what I mean? Because that's when you know he's going to come back the strongest. So for Thiago, it's really tough. But, a lot of men have fallen to Glover in that same situation where you're doing so well against him, and then you're not. It all of a sudden just turns on you. But Glover at this point, maybe it's that old man strength, right? That dad bod. Maybe I don't know. At 41, he's looking terrific. I really do hope that he gets the shot. We'll get to that in a second. But with Thiago, I don't necessarily think it's such a bad thing losing to Glover. And also, there were a lot of things that I think he did okay. But he did say after the fight that he apologized to his coaches. He didn't really do what the strategy was. And, I think a lot of us going in there were just happy to see Thiago come in and out of that fight unscathed, really, without damage, without injury. I know for me, looking at him, just hoping that, God, I hope those knees hold up. Gosh, I really hope there isn't any kind of injury. And so while I thought he was going to win with him not winning, it's almost like, okay, as long as you came out unhurt and you're still going to be in our top 5, which of course you are, then we're good. We're fine.
Yeah, and if you're either a matchmaker, Dana White, or a possible opponent of Santos, watching that fight, Santos did not move forward, right, in the rankings after getting a loss right here. But you're watching this fight, and you have to possibly fight him. You're thinking to yourself right now, I've got to take this guy down. There's no way I'm staying with this guy, because Glover is a seasoned striker with big power, has his hands up. He gets hit. From some of the speedier guys. He's slowing a bit with his age, and he gets hit. But we haven't really seen him hit and rock this fast, this hard, so suddenly as of lately. We've seen Glover get hurt before, but Santos came in, and he is just so fast and so explosive. His arms are so long. And even the ground and pound. You saw Glover doing damaging ground and pound for long minutes of each round that he had. And then it was somewhere in the 3rd or 4th round, Santos was able to get a sweep, get on top, and Santos got on top. Yeah. And when Santos lays down the ground and pound, it was devastating. It was very powerful stuff where Glover was looking to really have to protect himself because there was so much power. So he didn't win the fight, but I thought it was interesting watching it, Karyn. Santos came in and looked like the dominant fighter from the early go. Within 30 seconds, he had Glover hurt. And you kind of felt, or I kind of felt like, oh shit, here comes the finish. It's coming. It was inevitable. And then you saw this spark, like we mentioned, of Glover, where he gets hurt and he has a very knowledgeable whereabout takedown. It wasn't desperation. Right. It was like, all right, let me do this. Let me chain wrestle. Let me get on top. Let me hold position. Let me ground and pound. Let me get my head. Let me take some of the wind out of this big, strong, younger guy. And then so as that was happening, I remember thinking, okay, so Santos is the better fighter. I hope this doesn't turn into like a Conor McGregor fight where like people are so scared to stand with him that they desperately take him down and hold him down. And so that's what I was kind of thinking when I saw Glover do that. And then as round 2 and 3 continued, I realized this isn't like I'm scared to fight you kind of takedowns. This is I'm so good in every area of fighting that I will stand with you. When the opportunity presents itself, I will take you down. And this is where I present the most trouble for anyone in the entire division. And I'm going to show it on this big, strong guy, Santos, right now. So it became very relevant to me that he's a threat on the feet, but he's a much bigger threat on the ground. And if you give him that opportunity, that opening, he's going to take it. He's going to dominate you, and he will finish you.
Yeah. Yeah, and Glover is also just so nice.
both men are such good people. So
they really are great guys, and I know that doesn't really matter and factor into the fight game, but it's pretty significant. Just so you know too, on some facts here, Glover now has the longest active win streak in the light heavyweight division with 5 wins, so he's tied with Ankalaev there. And when we look, he's got the most finishes in light heavyweight history with 12. Wow. And when it comes to the most UFC wins in modern light heavyweight history now, he's second most. So John Jones has 20 wins, and Glover and Ryan Bader have 15. And then Rashad and OSP with 13 wins, yeah.
You know what's incredible about that, Karyn? I didn't know any of that. Glover got to the party late. Totally. Glover, we all know, when he came to the UFC, he was like 40 fights into his career already. He was this secret sparring partner of Chuck Liddell.
Right.
He finally got to the party later in his career. He still had great youthfulness in him, but it was, you're seeing people from the Dana White Contender Series and things, people getting signed at 5-0, 6-0, 3 years into their career. Glover had been fighting for a decade and fighting tough guys in Brazil and jungle fights and all over the world. And he finally got to this party. And now, like you're saying, he's got the most finishes in light heavyweight history. He's on all these charts.
Yeah.
Glover could be and definitely would have been the cowboy, the of the division.
Yeah.
He's so consistent. He's so good everywhere. He's very tough. Even though he's older, he can still fight with the best guys right now. Mm-hmm. And for him to come to the party somewhat late and to still have these records, think what would have happened if he would have gotten there at 25 years old or something, 5 years earlier than he did. He would be number 1 on every single category right now. He would have 20 more UFC fights and lead the division and everything.
Yeah, Glover is awesome. With that said, I think he should fight Jan. Like I understand that Israel wants to be a double champion, and I understand the appeal for that. Personally, and granted, I mean, you could say I guess it's a couple of different arguments. Whether or not you think Israel has cleaned out the middleweight division yet, or if you think there are still challenges for him, is one thing. Then the other question is, what about the John Jones fight? Where would that happen? At what weight would that happen? That's another thing. And then you have Israel versus Jan Blachowicz, which is kind of the third option there. And I get that people want to be double champions, and I do get that that's exciting. But at this point, for me, Israel is young. Jan has only just won his title. I'd rather see Jan fight Glover, personally. And then even if so, let's say Jan beats Glover, then Jan and Israel would still be an interesting fight, right? Because now you've solidified the light heavyweight champion as more of a champion as well. I feel like him all of a sudden defending against Israel as somebody not even in the weight class is kind of funky, because it's not like Jan's going to win the middleweight title if he wins that. That seems a little weird to me. So I personally would rather see Jan and Glover fight for a legit light heavyweight title and then see maybe the Israel fight down the road. Or not at all. I'm not. I mean, I'm not trying to take away Israel's dream of a double champion.
Yeah.
But I think Glover deserves it. I feel that's better for the division, and I'm kind of more interested in of Israel versus John anyway than I am in Israel versus Jan.
I completely agree. It's not enticing to me. I love Izzy. I'm super happy for Jan.
Yeah.
I didn't say I love Jan just because I'm still learning Jan.
He's so nice. But that's the other thing. It would be the battle of the nicest guys in the world if you put Jan and Glover in together for a title fight. It'd be like, oh my God, like they're so polite and friendly, like this. Yeah.
They'll be touching gloves every round and
right.
everything. Super nice guys. Super happy for him. But Jan just won. Jan just won the belt. There's no backstory. There's no beef between him and Izzy. I don't get this fight. Again, when we were doing the show in Vegas a couple weekends ago, and they were alluding to it, and Izzy was kind of not saying who it was, and we thought it was Jon Jones because that's the money fight. Jon Jones is the other biggest name in the UFC. He's the one with the big following, and he's the one that has beef and backstory with him and Izzy, and that's the fight that we want to see what's going to happen. Obviously, Jon Jones is moving up. But yes, Glover Teixeira, 5-fight win streak, the most in the division right now, or one of them in the division. Yeah. He just beat a top guy. He's the guy that's next in line. Why this Jan fight and Izzy right now? I get it. We talked about this last weekend, how Dana White was saying that who was it that why am I forgetting the 85 champion again that Izzy knocked out, the former champion, Robert Whittaker.
Yeah.
I always forget Robert Whittaker, the handsome, dapper man, Robert Whittaker. Robert Whittaker, that Dana White was alluding to, that Robert Whittaker did not want to take the Izzy fight. And me and you were both like, why would he not take the fight? He wants the fight. And then I saw in the interview, Robert just alluded to, yes, I want some time off, as you kind of said. Yeah. That's probably the reason he was burnt out, came back, got reinvigorated, fought spectacularly in his last fight. Now he wants to take some time off again, not burn himself out. So I suppose this whole debacle is happening because Izzy wants to stay on the gas. Izzy wants to stay consistent right now.
Makes sense.
And so if the next man in line, Robert Whittaker, is not ready to fight within the next couple of months, he wants the champ. But it's just too soon. We see champs after you cleaned out divisions.
Yeah.
After two champions or formidable champions. But again, Jan, there's no backstory. I want to see Glover. I think that would be a tremendous fight for the fans, and it makes sense in the division. And even if Glover wins, Izzy can fight Glover. It's like there's no difference. They have no beef or backstory. They're both nice guys, and they both would have just won the belt and not defended the belt yet. So it makes no difference. But again, Izzy wants to stay consistent. I ain't mad at him for that, but go fight some of those other 85ers possibly.
Yeah, I think we've actually now gotten some sizzle in the light heavyweight division here because, obviously with John leaving, John's name brought so much attention to it. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of, even if there is still who's Jan Blachowicz, people know Glover, right? And so Glover, I think, would bring some eyeballs to that title fight, as would Jan. Also, people would, I think, value that this one actually really matters for the division, because then also when you start to look at that, it does get interesting with who fought who's got the rematch over this. Santos already fought Blachowicz. What about this guy? Rakic is coming up. Who's here? Like, there's actually kind of an interesting thing going on now when you look at the top 5, 7, 8, 10 guys up at light heavyweight. So to me, I think it would be interesting to see Glover in there. And, because, what if Glover won? Then what if Santos came back and was able to get a rematch? Like, I don't know. To me, that's interesting. But I agree with you that if Israel wants to stay busy, that's his right and his prerogative to stay busy. I just personally would be more interested actually in Jan versus Glover than I am in Jan versus Israel. I'd rather see Israel fight all the 85ers. I'd rather see Israel really, really fight everybody in that division and either wait for Whittaker. Now we know, unfortunately, Darren Till is out of his fight with Jack Hermanson, but Kevin Holland is going to jump into that one next month.
Yeah.
Go Kevin Holland. So, I think there's enough sort of moving parts in each of these divisions right now that if Jan stayed where he is and if Israel stayed where he is, I think there's still interesting matchups for them.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of backwards analogy or an example, but it kind of reminds me of like Khabib left the lightweight division. Let's say Conor and Poirier fight, and they say this is for the title.
Right.
And then one of those men win. Let's say Conor, because he's the biggest name. Conor wins the lightweight division champion. He's the newly crowned king. And he says, I'm going up and fighting all the 70s. No, man, like, the division is now new.
Right.
Now let's see what happens with some of these fun matchups in both divisions now that a champion is out of these two division aspects. So, let it naturally play itself out. And I think there is time. Izzy is not as young as we think. He is in his 30s, but he's still young enough to have many years of fighting to go defend the belt 2 more times and then to find some of these double champ type super fights that he wants in the near future and then do that later on.
Yeah, I do think, the argument is stronger in Israel's favor for him wanting a different kind of a challenge. And I do understand that because when we look at all the big names in the division of middleweight, he did fight a lot of them, most of them, I understand that. But I want Glover to get his title shot.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is. It's less about denying Israel something he wants and giving Glover something that he wants. And I think that's really what it is in this case. It's because I think partly what you said, even though Israel is not quite as young as everybody imagines him to be, we definitely have more time with Israel than we do with Glover. So I feel like give Glover his chance.
Almost 10 years, exactly. Yeah. So give him an opportunity. And again, I know I keep saying this, but like if Jan and Izzy had some backstage altercation 3 years ago, and this shit got brought up, and they showed some surveillance, I'd be like, oh, this is juicy. I might have to see this because these two had to be held back by security guards. But there's nothing there, and it's like, let me go fight a guy that just won the belt who's bigger than me. For no reason, and it's supposed to be the biggest fight in UFC history. I don't think so. I'm sorry. I just don't think it's going to be that big. People will be like, oh, I'm interested to see how he fares against a bigger man. Right. But it's not like the battle of the century against John Jones or this or that or two worlds collide, the Thrilla Manila. It's not at all. Yeah,
and I do think it would be, even though they'd be incredibly polite, I think people would be more curious in the legendary Polish power versus the Brazil power. Like, I think, I don't know, maybe because those are two kind of similar guys too, in a way. Like, I get the impression that nobody doesn't like Jan Blachowicz either. I have a feeling if you went to his hometown, there's nobody sitting there salty at the bar, pissing off, telling crap stories about Blachowicz, that a-hole. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't see it. And I know that's not the case with Glover. Nobody doesn't like Glover Teixeira.
Yeah. And you know what's incredible about this whole conversation? When we're watching the promo for the fight that we saw this week in the main card, Santos versus Glover, you see the highlight reel of Santos knocking out Jan. And you're like, oh, yeah, Santos is that bad of a man. Like, he did that to Jan early in his career, dropped him, put him away. So Jan is now the champion, obviously. Like, that's the kind of power, that's the kind of explosiveness that this man has, and that's what Glover was able to withstand, and then go and take him down and finish him and do all things that we're applauding him for right now. And that's what makes him so special and unique, and that's why I think he does deserve that opportunity to fight for the title.
I hope so. Well, we talk about his longevity. The co-main event, Andrei Arlovski still has it as well. This man winning another fight. I thought Tanner Boser was going to win this one. I do see him as an up-and-comer in this one, and I do think that he has a bright future. On this one, I just, obviously he just didn't do enough. I don't think either guy really did enough for it to be overly compelling, if I'm being honest. I'm not trying to harsh on these guys. I think Andrei plays a smart game now, and he's smart and strategic and avoids damage and avoids trouble. And maybe that's part of what it was Tanner not being able to time things well enough or being too afraid of getting countered. I'm not really sure what it was. If he was moving a lot and this and that, but I just, obviously we needed a lot more volume out of him. When that decision was read, I kind of was like, yeah, okay. Like I had expected more of a fight in that one and didn't really get much in it, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I was completely fine with it. If it had went the other way, I'd have been completely fine with it as well. But I was barely leaning towards Arlovski because although Tanner was landing more shots in the numbers with the leg kicks, I'm a leg kick guy too.
Right.
But the shots didn't really seem to phase him that much. They weren't like throwing him off balance. They weren't doing tremendous amount of damage. And Arlovski was almost like happy to take him. He was like, it's a slapping sound. Right. He wasn't like moving out of the pocket to try to avoid him, but still getting hit. And even, like, it sounds funny, even if the same amount of power lands, if I'm trying to get away and you still get me, it's like, damn, you won, like playing tag. Like, I couldn't get away. But Arlovski's just like, hit it because it's not hurting me. And so it gave the judges the impression like these shots are landing, but I'm not scoring them as damage. And it's just such a tricky thing. Like, what is damage? Redness of the leg, or if somebody's visibly shaken? And Arlovski was not visibly shaken, hurt, deterred. He kept walking forward, not doing a substantial amount, but not hurt at all. So I kind of brushed off those tremendous amount of leg shots that he threw on Arlovski and really weighed in more on the few counters that Arlovski had with the power. And that's why I leaned towards him in that fight. But again, not a super fun fight. Two guys with similar styles, kind of both looking to counterpunch and a little bit hesitant on getting on the inside. Yeah. But Arlovski looked like the bigger man when you see those two next to each other. Arlovski seems so big again.
Yeah, he's a big man. He's a big man.
He's a big man.
Tanner will learn from this. I mean, this was just his 5th UFC fight. So he'll keep getting better from this one. He had already won a couple fights this year. He was over on Fight Island and stuff. So for him, he's got time. He's a developing talent that, definitely I think can do good things in the heavyweight division. Just give him a little bit more time to develop. One of the guys though that was impressive on this one was Giga Chikadze. Giga from Kings MMA. Giga is a former kickboxer. And he's been looking for his first finish in the UFC. So he finally got it the other day. He kind of set it up. He's got the Giga kick, but he went upstairs to the head, set it up first with that, and then was able to pounce on him and get the finish. He did get a bonus for that. He was supposed to, he called out Jeremy Stephens after. He was supposed to fight Arnold Allen, right? And then that got shifted around. And so anyway, long story short, there was a bit of a call out. He was talking about Jeremy Stephens, and then Jeremy on Twitter responded like, sure, let's go, let's do this. So maybe they will fight. But Giga's a guy that definitely looking to climb the ranks and has been winning and doing so impressively. I think getting his first finish was a big deal. And I would think that you would like watching him fight just because you love the good strikers as well, obviously.
My coaches I watched the fight. My coaches were sending me the highlight. Like, this is your wheelhouse, baby. Yes. This is your wheelhouse. We hurt the liver with power. Yeah. Get them to either drop the hands or expect the lower shot and go upstairs with it. I mean, it was like striking 101, but he's such an experienced kickboxer with so much knowledge that it was kind of, I don't want to say the obvious, but it was like, yes, start low, go high. Yeah. But he does it so good, and watching it, he almost had a delay. He went straight to the body, and then on the second kick, he stayed mid-range, like not committing to the upstairs kick. Right. He stayed mid-range halfway through, then at the very end, took it upstairs, and it just threw his opponent off completely. I think he was hurt to the body already. Yeah. But, Giga's trouble. He's trouble for anybody. Yeah. He's so fast, and he's long range. And you just mentioned the possible call-out matchup against him and Jeremy Stephens. Yeah, I think that is a very smart matchup for him because not only is Jeremy Stephens such a name recognition, big name in the UFC, that would be a feather in his cap. He brings the fight. That would be a main card, main slot, co-main event type of fight. Yeah. But Jeremy Stephens, as tremendous of a fighter as he is, I think some of these longer, ranger, kickier guys, kickers give him more trouble because Jeremy likes to sit in the pocket, eat one, give one back, give 2 or 3 back with tremendous power. But Giga's such a polished striker. He knows how to fight from range and throw those kicks and set up things that'd be a fun fight and a smart call out.
Yeah, I think it's a tough matchup for Jeremy, if we're honest. Yeah. I mean, because of like what you just said, that length and that reach that Giga has. And, Jeremy is a knockout artist for sure, but whether or not he'd be able to get in there and land on Giga's chin is a good question. I don't know. I like it. I like the idea that he called him out, and I like that Jeremy got right out there on Twitter right away and said, yeah, so that is very cool. So congrats to Giga on that one. Like I said, he got his 4th win in 2020. I'm curious what your take is on Raoni, Barcelos, though, and Khalid Taha. Those guys got the fight of the night. And for Barcelos now, he's in the bantamweight division. He's formerly a featherweight, too, where Giga is and stuff. But for him, so after the fights, I do a little after the facts segment where I give people a lot of these bonus numbers. So if you want all the bonuses and info, you can just look at my after the facts video. But just so you know, for context, Raoni Barcelos now is on a 4-win streak in the bantamweight division. And so the champ has 7. So Peter Yan has 7. Marlon Vera has 6 wins. Aljamain Sterling has 5. And now Barcelos with 4-win streak there. And that was a very entertaining fight. And Barcelos also had a personal best with how many significant strikes he landed. Like former record was 82 for him or something. He landed 120 something. Like his volume was just so much. He's just a very talented guy who actually had to go there without 2 members of his corner, Pedro Hizzo, the former, legendary fighter, and also his dad, who's a coral belt in BJJ. Both of those guys weren't able to come because of COVID. So Raoni was also kind of out there without his usual support team, but just did great.
That's incredible. Your dad is a coral belt? I mean, I would be telling everybody.
I know, right?
I'd be so proud.
I was looking at that. I was like, his dad's a what? Like, holy crap.
Yeah. There's not that many. Like, there's a lot of black belts out there, and then there's levels to black belts. Right. But when it comes to coral belts, there's not that many. So that's kind of legendary that your father obtained that type of title in jiu-jitsu. And you saw it come through in his grappling game as well. And all accounts of his mixed martial arts. I was so impressed with him. I really, really was. I remember them saying something about a coral belt, but I didn't quite catch it during the cast, during the show. So I'm glad you cleared that up for me. But I thought he looked great on the ground. I thought his striking was sharp, his movement. He has so many weapons. For him to throw those long knees and land those knees up, shooting in the clinch, put him on a cage. His hands look good. His kicks look good. His ground game looks superb. And then it takes 2 to tango. And his opponent, it was Taha, right? Was it Taha? Taha was so good because I really, truly believe that so many opponents would have been knocked out or stunned or the referee might have stopped it. They might have got hit with that knee, rocked, covered up, and Barcelos could have just kind of pounded on him and the referee would have stepped in. But Taha it sounds funny, but he was so courageous. He would get rocked and then he would come and just fight back. And like, I know that feeling of being hurt or feeling like, oh, this guy's about to just smother me, but I'm going to fight through it. And he would do it. And he kept the fight going and and it ended up being this tremendous war. And I'm so glad. I was tweeting and everybody was tweeting, like, give these guys a bonus. They reminded me of the Dustin Poirier, who was his last fight? Dustin Poirier versus
Dan Hooker.
Dan Hooker. I remember watching that fight thinking, this is high level modern MMA. 2 guys that are in the pocket and they're parrying and slipping and countering and they're not really taking a step out. They're not just Pride 2000 dogfight, but they're right out of range in that pressure area where you have to be on every second of every minute of every round. And these 2 guys did that the entire time. So it was so fun to watch. I'm glad they get their money. They deserved it.
Yeah, I'm glad they got it too. And, again, I'm fortunate that I'm at the Apex, but even, as you know, we kind of are up in that green room. We don't even really always get to lean over and watch everything, although this weekend I did watch the main event and Steve-O was there, which was kind of funny. I don't know if people
I
saw
heard him doing questions
at
the post-fight.
Yeah, Steve-O was there. So when I came up to watch the main event, our little area, because think we've explained to people that our little stage area there for now is off of Dana's kind of VIP lounge area. So sometimes we don't get to go in there for as much time, depending on who he's got in there. But this time Steve-O was in there with a couple friends. So I saw him, when I came out to watch the main event. He's, nice guy, polite and everything. And then, he was talking to Glover at the press conference and he did an interview with Laura after. But yeah, so in that respect, like a fight like that, I do kind of wish there was a big crowd, cheering on Barcelos and Taha, because it really was great. But definitely everybody in the building, we were feeling it and we were cheering him on. So congratulations to those guys. Go ahead.
It would have been a standing ovation probably. I want to go back real quick, if you don't mind, to Steve-O. Yeah. Do you know what's going on with Steve-O? So I've seen him like hanging around fighters, and I saw him kind of like doing question or things with Donald Cowboy Cerrone. I think he did some stuff with Bryant T-City. But as far as him being in the post-fight press conference type thing in questioning. So is this like a career that he's upstarting now, that he's pursuing? Do you know?
I don't know. I didn't really talk to him about that because, like I said, when I came out and saw him, the fights were going on and I didn't want to, we wanted to watch the fight and stuff. Yeah. So I don't really know. He actually is pretty well versed in it though. In the interview that he was doing later on with Laura that we ran on the post show, he, some of the stuff he was talking about, he actually knew what he was talking about and he knew people's names and So I think he watches it a lot and is actually pretty well versed on stuff. So it'd be funny if Steve-O started covering MMA. I don't know. I suppose I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, that's why I asked, because I was really impressed. The Glover, I think it was Glover's press conference.
Yeah.
He started asking Glover a question, and Glover, was all Steve-O,
Yeah, I know.
And you could hear his voice. He's got that.
I know his voice is crazy.
Yeah. And it was funny because Glover was like, "Hey, Steve-O," and it could have been a very lighthearted moment for Steve-O to be like, "Hey, man, like, did you kick his ass?" But Steve-O stayed professional and asked him a very specific question, and Glover answered. And then Steve-O followed up with a follow-up question that was very professional, as if it was any other MMA journalist out there doing this. And I remember listening, going, "This isn't him trying to just be funny, or this isn't him is taking a stab at it. This is him saying, like, I want to do this." I could see that this is like a career choice type of questions that he was asking. So it really intrigued me that this is something that maybe he wants to do in the future. That'd be fun to see him at more events.
Yeah, it would be fun. But the funny thing is, too, that we were laughing at, and we can get to it or we can talk about it now, but the situation with the ear coming off.
Oh, man.
And then just different stuff that we're like, it's funny to see Steve-O like wincing at things or being like, "Oh, that's gnarly."
Yeah.
You're like, dude, what have you done to your body? Like, you've done
the face.
That's the thing that was kind of hard for me, is I'm sitting there, "Hey, Steve-O, how you doing?" You're watching the fights, but literally in the back of my mind, I'm just picturing all of these things off of Jackass that I've seen him do to his body. I'm like,
yeah.
How is this man, and just everything we know he's gone through. I'm like, how is this man still alive and breathing? Thank you for that. But like, just what has this man put his body through? I found it kind of funny that he was there watching fights thinking like, man, they're really going through it. And I'm like, dude, your body, like, what have you done to yourself? It's crazy.
He hadn't done that yet, apparently, but not many of us had. That was crazy. That was crazy. And when you watch the highlights back, it looked like it was a right hand over the top that initiated it, because when he showed the right straight, you could see some of that cracking. And then when he got him against the cage, when Max Griffin got him against the cage, that elbow kind of just ripped it. But it had to be that he was battling what's it
cauliflower
called?
Here?
Cauliflower, thank you, that I have to. He must have had cauliflower, and I can tell you from experience, the worst cauliflower to have is when it's like on the inside. The outside is not bad. Like, that's what people want. You see people on YouTube sometimes like hammering their ear.
Yeah.
They want that look. They want that respect to act like, they've been through battles. But you don't ever see people hammering the inside, because that's the one that hurts the most. And these take forever to go away, and they're the hardest to drain.
Yeah.
And so it looked like it was very deep on this part of the ear, the inside.
Right.
And he probably wasn't able to drain it, and he was probably dealing with that his entire camp and having to sleep. You can't sleep on that side of the pillow, you got to sleep on the other side. So it's probably something that he's been battling a while, and he got punched in just the right spot where it was probably full of fluid. There's nowhere else for the fluid to go but out. And we've seen it before. Max Griffin said it in his interview, and he took my words out of my mouth. It was like Leslie Smith and then that big white guy, like Kimbo, and that was my word.
James the Colossus Thompson. I was there. I worked that fight.
There you go.
I worked that fight, and I remember James walking into the meeting, and I'm looking at the guys that I'm working, and we're all like, we see that cauliflower ear. Like, does he know it's there? We're like, bro, we literally asked him, like, did you ever think about draining that thing before the fight? And he was like, no. And then, of course, Kimbo exploded it, and we all knew it was coming. And I was there for that one. So, so 2 out of 3 ear explosions I've been at. I wasn't at Leslie's fight. But, so we're there watching it, and I'm like, I'm like, oh, my God. His ear, poor guy, Ramiz Brahimai, poor guy. And he had also already been through eye surgery. He was supposed to make his debut before, and then he was getting his medicals done, and then they found out he had a tumor behind his eye. He had to have eye surgery and get, heal up from that. Then finally he was able to make his debut and all this stuff, and now we've almost lost an ear. Like, this guy, like, I just hope he's all right. But that freaked me out. Like, that.
I mean, speaking of it, didn't Rafael Adesanya also the back of his ear?
Yes, well, his was really bad. Yes, and then it got re-injured in the fight. RDA had a bad ear situation as well.
The ears are in fighting, they're such a funny thing. The more you train and grapple, you're just like, why do we have these things? They get in the way. They get folded.
To hold your mask, Alan. To hold your mask.
The mask, exactly. What we do? I guess we'd have to tie it.
Right.
But other than the mask and being able to kind of do the Hulk Hogan, they just get in the way, and like that's why you see, you know, to make light of it, but like the dogs that used to clip their ears and everything, the pit bulls, because they get in the way, and my old bulldog Buster, well, I used to have to drain his ears. He would scratch his ear too hard, it would get cauliflower, and then I would drain his ear and drain my ear the same night. We both had cauliflower for like a month. It was horrible. But yeah, it gets in the way, and if you don't drain it, crazy things happen, like we saw that night.
So just so nasty. So hopefully Ramiz is okay, because and I'm also thinking for Max, you know, is it a target, right? I mean, what do you do? Like if you're the guy throwing the punches and you see that the dude's ear is about to come off, like I don't know. I personally, I don't know that I could keep throwing a punch at somebody's ear that I know is about to come off. Like I would be freaked out that I wouldn't keep going.
Max loved it. This is like a highlight from Max. He was covered in blood. They stopped the fight. The guy's ears dangling. Like, this is what the warrior stuff that he can't wait. He can't wait for the UFC to make his next highlight reel, and they show him all bloody, and they show his opponent all like, yeah, he was all about it that night, I think.
By the way, Max has some amusing things on his Instagram sometimes. I do get a laugh at some of the stuff on Max Payne's Instagram. He did actually call out, boy, you want to fight Carlos Condit. He mentioned Carlos Condit after the fight, and also Vicente Luque are two names that he brought up. And so any of those, you know, those guys both are scrappy. You know, I do want to revisit on the main card though, the Gadelha Yan Xiaonan fight. Yan Xiaonan won that fight. She's undefeated in the UFC. She was ranked number 8 coming into this one. Claudia was ranked number 4. And I was working with Angela Hill, and Angela had fought both of these women before. And she actually thought that Claudia was going to win the fight, and she didn't. Yan won. And I thought that you know, it was a close fight. You know, Jan, we were talking about that, like her footwork and her speed. She was going to have more of that, but we know that Gadelha had the advantage when it came to grappling and all that. And I think that's what Angela was saying she thought was going to be the difference maker. But it wasn't quite enough. And as the fight went on, it just seemed like, I know this is the same complaint everybody says is that Claudia runs out of gas. But I don't necessarily think she ran out of gas. But I definitely thought as this fight was going on in the third, you're like, wow, Jan looks way fresher to me in this fight.
Well, yeah, and just her style. Two things. Jean has a very, she's very good and elusive on the feet, and she's very high volume with the hands. So that kind of style right there could wear on you. If Jean doesn't get fatigued, because that's her style. Yeah, she's used to doing this.
Right. But
if you're on the opposite end of that, that gets very tiring to get hit so many times, and you're always resetting, and you're never able to plant your feet because your target is moving, so you have to reset, and you can see that in the damage starting to accumulate on Gadelha. But Jan also just seemed to have that like youthful legs. Gadelha was much more of a stationary base power striker, where Jan had that youthfulness, just that spring in her step, like a young kid has it, and she could just go the entire fight. But I was impressed by her. I was really impressed by her. I would like to maybe see some more finishing ability from Jan, and maybe she has some in some of her previous fights that I'm not aware of. But she definitely has like a Neil Magny type of equation to her, where they could just go, tap, touch, and tire you down. Right. But I think when she starts getting a little bit higher, the more, and Gadelha is a very big test for her. But some of these other girls, you're gonna have to maybe put them away if you want to get to that top 2 or 3 in the division. Yeah.
I mean, it's tough because I guess that's one thing that I feel like that division is very competitive, but there aren't as many finishers in it as there are, you know, in some other ones. Obviously, Rose can, you know, submit people and knock people out, and Joanna can and stuff. And, you know, you have some people with some grappling skills there. But I mean, like I said, she's undefeated in the UFC though, and to be in that division where there are so many girls of equivalent skill sets and stuff, like to stay undefeated there is tough, because as we know, a lot of the girls in that division win 2, then they lose 1, or they split 1. You know, they go on and off, and so
Right.
For her to maintain that is pretty big, and she beat Angela and Kovalkiewicz, and now beating Claudia Gadelha. That's a really big deal. So yeah, that's a big deal for her. And the other takeaway, I guess, from that night was Darren Elkins. He was on a four fight skid. And so you never know when, you're going to turn it around. And obviously we've seen other fighters like that, even speaking of Carlos Condon and guys that we've seen before. Sometimes people are like, oh, they should hang it up. But Elkins is always tough. He's always, he only gets competitive fights or whatever, he's in a lot of wars. And we do know that he always does take the damage. But yeah, in this one, he was victorious. He set a new record for takedowns with 48. So he's got the most takedowns in the featherweight division. Used to be Dennis Bermudez at 46. He landed 7 in that fight all by himself, on Saturday. So Elkins, the damage, you just can't write him off. The man is still doing it.
And so if I heard you right, Elkins was on a 4-fight skid going into this fight?
Yeah, he lost 4. Yeah, he had lost here. I'll remind you who he was fighting. But, he definitely had to win. Because before he fought Garagori, he lost a unanimous decision to Nate Landwehr. He lost a unanimous decision to Ryan Hall. He was stopped by Ricardo Lamas in the 3rd round. Lamas got him with strikes. And then before that, he lost to Alexander Volkanovski. Before that, he submitted Michael Johnson. So Darren Elkins hadn't won a fight since January of 2018. And so, yeah, he was on a 4-fight skid and turned it around.
That's a tough place to be. Congratulations to him. I mean, I haven't done a 4-fight skid, but I've been on a fight skid before, and it's tough. It's like you just want that taste of victory so bad. You just want to feel like a winner. Go back to the gym. And not have everybody like, oh, good try.
Keep your head up, right?
Celebrate, and just like you don't want to have that. And for him to go through 4 fights like that and just keep toughing it out and then come and get this victory, man, I'm happy for the guy.
Yeah, the damage. Well, Alan, I would say that we would look ahead to this weekend. We don't really know what's going to happen at the time of us recording this. Unfortunately, Islam Makhachev is out of his fight with Rafael dos Anjos. I believe it was a staph infection, is what I've read. So that sucks. And so they were looking for a replacement for RDA. And some people were thinking Michael Chandler should come in and fight him because Michael Chandler, as we know, was in the backup position to fight if Khabib or Justin dropped out. So then I guess Michael Chandler then said, no, I can't do that, though, because I have other plans. And then Rafael was like, what do you mean you have other plans? Like I'm a former champion, and like if you came to the division, you need to fight and stuff like that. So at this time of us recording this, things are maybe getting a little testy between the two of them. I don't know. It sucks because I was looking forward to that, and I was looking forward to Rafael going back to 55, and I like watching him. I like the dude, and I like seeing him fight. And Rafael's been through, he had COVID and this and that, and like this year keeps screwing up so many fights. But hopefully they find somebody for him to fight. I'm not exactly sure who it is, but Michael Chandler, that would have been pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, that would have been when that came out, I go, yeah, you know what? That's a good matchup right there. Right. Obviously, it's not happening. This won't happen either, but not for nothing. My buddy Daniel Rodriguez, who's been making waves in the UFC, going for his 4th win this year. Yeah. His opponent fell out as well, I saw. Right. Daniel's is 70, but he has made 55 before. He probably couldn't do it now, but I was if they were super desperate, they could maybe say, how about Daniel fights Rafael at a catch weight or something? I don't know, just to salvage it. That doesn't make any sense for Los Anjos, but just for the sake of them wanting to fight or having the fight or needing some type of main event. It doesn't really make sense for Daniel to be a main event just yet. Right. And because it's 2 guys on the card that are fight ready, that are COVID free, that could possibly fight. But I mean, I don't know what they're going to do. Exactly.
Well, and Michael Chandler's trying to hold out for the Tony Ferguson fight. I mean, you could put Tony in there, but Tony and RDA have already fought. They fought in Mexico City. That was an epic fight. It was an incredible fight. I'm not saying I would watch round 6 of that. I mean, I would watch that again. But I don't know what they're going to do with that one. And I'm also trying to think, at the top, hey, throw James Krause in. He'll fight anybody, right?
It's tough when it's a main event because if it was not the main event, you could just find
but it's a main event, right? Yeah,
something like that. But it's a main event, and it's a main event with possible implications on the division, and so you can't really just throw a random person in. But some of the names that you mentioned would have been good, bigger names.
It's tough. It's tough. Well, you know what, Alan, before we wrap it up, though, I think it is an interesting thing, debate topic, going back to our main event here. So I would be curious for the fans if they want to get in on the debate, like who they want Jan Blachowicz to fight next. If they think Glover Teixeira should get the title fight, or if they would rather see Israel Adesanya. So that's what I want to know, is what people think on that one.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see if most people. I mean, I can't see. Everyone would probably see it like us. I'll watch it.
Right.
But there's not a lot of intrigue about it right now. So I'd be curious to see what the fans think.
Yeah. All right. Well, my vote is for Glover versus Jan Blachowicz. That's my vote. But anyway, Alan, so yeah, T-minus just a week from now, you'll be packing your bag and getting ready to go to Vegas. So I'm just so excited for that. Make sure you keep your hands up. So for folks who know, for your week here, like, what do you do in terms of, like, how much do you weigh now? How much are you planning when you go to Vegas next week? How much do you plan to weigh then? Like, I'm not sure, since it's been a minute for you, like, where you like your weight this many days out.
Yeah, it's not a complicated thing for me, because I don't balloon up, but I normally walk at 190, fight at 170, so it's a 20-pound cut in total. But throughout the course of camp and training, you start to just lose weight, at least my body type does. So I like to arrive fight week around 183. That way I know I have a 12, 13-pound cut. And from there, those 5 days that I'm there, I'm just losing about a pound a day.
Yeah.
And then I do a big water cut the day before, which is like 5 pounds. Jump on a scale, rehydrate. I've got it down to a science somewhat at this point in my career. So it's a fairly easy cut. I hate to say fairly easy, because when I'm going through it, it's the worst thing in the world. But I've been to so many fights where I see guys hunched over on the ground, their coach is dragging them back into the sauna and rubbing them with towels, trying to create like friction on their skin and slapping them. And like, I feel crappy right now, but I've never had to go through that. And so I feel like that's why I say I have a fairly easy cut. I've never missed weight. And so everything's on point right now. And I'm ready to rock and roll.
That's good. I'm excited. What's going to be funny is I'll have to stop by and see you before the fight. It actually kind of cracks me up to see, like, me and Alan in fight week, because even I've noticed it. I'm like, this guy's kind of being a dick today. I'm like, it's because he's fighting. I'm like, Alan's usually so nice. He's kind of being an a-hole right now.
Whenever I have like friends from my outside world and they'll come train at my gym or whatever, I have to sometimes tell them, yo, by the way, like, sorry I didn't like talk to you. Normally I'm talkative, but like sometimes when I'm at the gym, I'm just like, I know my coach is about to try to drown me, and I have to go there with every focused and like fight mode and see the crowd and not, just to get through this session. And I'm zoned. And so, yeah, like there's sometimes two different me's inside the gym. And Karyn's alluding to one time when she saw me before the fight. Yeah, I was cutting weight. I was in that fight mode 100%.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Well, I'm excited. I'll be working there. And yeah, I'm working this weekend too. Don't really know what the main event is, but hopefully they find somebody good for Rafael. But yeah, so on Instagram, I'm KB.Heat. Otherwise, you can find me, Karyn Bryant, across the board. You can also follow MMA Heat across the board. And our producer, Wade Eck. Alan, where can folks find you?
Yeah, and give me a follow as well, guys, at Alan Jovan, all my social media platforms. And thank you guys for tuning in again, guys. We appreciate it.
Yeah, make sure you guys follow Alan, because he's getting some cool pictures during fight camp and everything, and just telling that whole backstage story behind the scenes and everything. So I like it. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, folks. Well, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Take care, guys.